Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. Whether you're joining us on YouTube, through the OAA website, or if you're a registered attendee for our virtual conference week. My name is Susan Spiegel, and although I always like to say I'm from Sudbury, I am a Toronto based architect and president of the Ontario Association of Architects. The OAA, which is the Ontario Association of Architects, regulates the practice of architecture in Ontario to protect the public interest. We are dedicated to increasing knowledge, skills, and proficiency of those in the profession, architects, licensed technologists, OAA, and others on the path to licensure. And today we're all gathered together here as part of our virtual conference week to honor and celebrate those who have made their mark. As you come into this virtual space, we're running a list of names on the screen. These are our newly licensed members, architects and licensed technologists OAA, who are the future of our profession. We'll be celebrating them tomorrow with a special social event, and we'll have more information about that at the end of today's presentation. And by the way, I signed every single one of your certificates, so I know all of your names. So welcome and congratulations. Before we begin, I want to recognize the traditional lands on which we are individually and collectively standing as we come together virtually from all of our spaces across diverse Indigenous territories on Turtle Island. We're going to put a map on the screen, which is an app that we really like at the OAA, and it is from nativeland.ca. And it is a website that shows Indigenous lands, treaties, languages in a way that changes and challenges the way that people see the history of their countries and peoples. The website also provides great educational resources to correct the way that people speak about colonialism and indigeneity, and to encourage territory awareness in everyday speech and action. If you haven't yet, I invite you to take a moment today to acknowledge the land on which you find yourself and to reflect on and recognize the significance of these territories to Indigenous people, as well as our mutual obligations to respect and share these lands. So today we are here to celebrate the accomplishment of individuals across a wide continuum, from students poised to begin their work to 4 architects who are no longer with us, but whose impact continues to reverberate within the profession. I would like to begin by thanking my fellow 2021 Service Award jury members. I was going to say here, but they're not, who judged this year's Randy Roberts Service Award and the OAA Honor Roll. A big thank you to architects Diana Osborne, Corey Stuychison, Joe Lobko, who joins us now. Joe, over to you.
Hello, my name is Joe Lobko. I'm a Toronto architect and partner at DTAW and was the previous 2020 recipient of the G. Randy Roberts Service Award. This year, it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce the newest recipient. Every year, this award goes to someone for extraordinary service to the membership, for behind-the-scenes dedication and action, as well as employing the skills and the energy to get things done. David Croft exemplifies these qualities. He spent more than 3 decades as Vice President of Claims at Prodemnity Insurance and the Indemnity Plan before that, building a reputation as a tireless defender of architectural practices and a reliable source of knowledge in architecture, construction, insurance, and human nature. Retiring at the end of 2020 at the age of 90 and after a 65-year professional career, David has provided an extraordinary service to Ontario architects, teaching them, defending them, being a confidant, and protecting them from financial harm from behind the scenes. I want to read you something from his nomination letter. David's impact on the profession can't be overestimated. There have been 6,000 claims, in all of which David has influenced a successful outcome. This bears thinking about. 6,000 problems faced by 6,000 beleaguered architects and their firms, lives disrupted, work interrupted, firms threatened with bankruptcy, life savings endangered. And yet, in all of those cases, no houses or firms were ever lost. Please join me in welcoming David Croft.
I came to Canada in 1958. I grew up in the 1930s and during the war. I remember the Blitz and the austerity that followed the war. I went to architectural school in London. And when I arrived in Canada in 1958, before most of the people in the room were born, I felt I'd arrived in paradise. Things were just wonderful compared to the UK. And I practiced in Montreal. I worked for some very good firms, and we had a firm of my own for a while with partners, and ended up after rather rocky times in the 1970s, I suppose, in the United States. And I spent 12 years in the United States, mostly in Florida and Texas. When I came back to Canada, I walked in to renew my membership of the OAA and met Brian Parks, and they were just starting an indemnity plan, which was an insurance plan for architects who couldn't really obtain architects readily on the open market. And because of the work I'd done in the United States, which was in fairly chaotic times, I had done a lot of legal work, quasi-legal work, architectural work, workouts of bankruptcies and that kind of thing. And the job that was offered just seemed somehow connected. So I took it on, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life, because I have had 32 years of really delightful work for the profession in Ontario. It's enabled me to travel all over Ontario to some of the remote and northern places, meet architects who practice under conditions that are quite different from people in Toronto and Montreal. And many of them were actually glad to see me, despite the fact that others thought me of as a kind of undertaker arriving during terrible times, because architects really don't like to be sued. And I usually came pursuant to a lawsuit. I love the work. I love the forensic work, because each architect had his own problems and his own opinions about what went wrong. And it very often wasn't him in his view, but some of them had to be gently persuaded that we had to be a little flexible. And I managed to, I think, help a lot of architects out of really disastrous situations that they found themselves in. And I just enjoyed so much, and I enjoyed the fact that most architects have such integrity, and they don't show it because they're always elbowing each other for the next job. But just being able to look after other members of my profession and not compete with them was a really incredibly rewarding experience. And the fact that I was able to do it so long, until I was really approaching 90, is quite extraordinary, I suppose. And it just ended my architectural career in a fairly long stretch of incredibly lovely work. And I've got everyone to thank in the profession and for tolerating me. I know I was sometimes irascible, but it has been a very enjoyable ride. The success that I've had, if I've had success, has been largely due not to myself as much as the people I've worked with. And Byron had assembled a wonderful team. I had a group of lawyers that I spent most of the 30 years loyal to, and they loyal to us. And that's really just about all I have to say. And I wish everybody in the profession a good luck and continuing prosperity.
Hello, my name is Natasha Krikan. I'm an architect and the OAA's current Vice President Education. It is my pleasure to be here to announce this year's 4 inductees into the OAA's Honor Roll. The OAA Honor Roll recognizes the legacy of those who are sadly no longer with us, but whose quality of work and contribution to the province's architectural heritage or profession lives on. Their names and bios are inscribed in a book of records at the OAA headquarters and are featured on the website where you can learn more about them. This year, 4 individuals have been added to the Honor Rolls pages. Anthony Butler, for his advocacy of the rich and diverse architectural heritage of 19th and 20th century architecture in Hamilton. John Griffiths, for his significant contributions to contemporary architecture in and around the Ottawa region. Barry Sampson, for his outstanding contribution to the practice of contemporary architecture and for teaching and serving as a mentor to countless students at the University of Toronto. And Carlos Fenton, who is among the most prolific and successful restoration architects in Canada, credited with more than 100 major civic projects. We'll now hear from their families and colleagues.
My name is Peggy Butler. I had the good fortune to be married to Tony Butler for 65 years. We have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. Tony died on March 28th, 2020, at the age of 88. Over his 45-year career, Tony primarily designed public buildings in Hamilton, including the Regional Police Administration Building, the original buildings at Mohawk College with McIntosh and Moeller, and the Central Library and Market with Brooke Carruthers Shaw. Tony was a dedicated mentor to many young graduates and also to experienced foreign architects who were trying to establish their careers in Canada. He provided extensive service to his profession, helping to certify architectural schools, writing articles, being the senior English editor of the Canadian Handbook of Practice, and being the president of the OAA in 1986. Tony had a passion for heritage conservation and devoted much time to volunteer activities for the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, the Beach Canal Lighthouse Group, the Ruthven Park Committee, the Social Planning and Research Council, and the Hamilton Historical Board. In 1996, he was awarded the Order of Da Vinci by the OAA for his service to architectural profession. Tony was an intelligent, kind, and thoughtful man who happily devoted his life to his family and to architecture in Canada.
Hello, my name is Eliza Griffiths, daughter of the late architect Tony Griffiths. It is my great pleasure today to say a few words in recognition of my father's practice and contribution to the field of architecture that has precipitated his induction into the honor roll of the OAA, which he would be tremendously pleased and proud about. He was born in the UK I come to know his architecture. I grew up in a family of architects. Both my mother and father were architects. My mother, a professor at Carleton, and my father had a long, sustained practice in often public buildings, commissions, and within the network of various firms. My first memory of architecture as such was he and my mother surrounded by other young architects in the 70s swinging London, and being aware of spaces that they were all sort of designing together with their own homes, which I would say again, were influenced by high modernism, but with this 70s groovy London, not Austin Powers, but there was a certain grooviness to it, and that probably inflected my father's and my mother's spirit all the way through their practices, their various practices. My father started to work in London with the firm Powell and Moya, and during that time was responsible for a number of projects and involved in a number of very interesting projects, including the Churchill Gardens housing estate in Pimlico, London, that won an award. He emigrated to Canada with my mother. And having worked with Murray and Murray, a big Ottawa firm, joined their office in the 70s. He very quickly after, within a couple of years, became a partner at Murray Murray, along with Alec Rankin, his lifelong friend and lifelong colleague within the practice in the field of architecture. My father had a public architectural presence as well as during his practice. He was a member of a number of associations, most notably the OAA, which is he's been recognized and honored at this occasion. And he was served a term as president of the OAA, for which he was very proud and very interested and engaged with that. He also was the chief architect for the College of Agricultural Practice in Malawi, Africa, which was involved a great deal of his time and commitment and sounded incredibly exciting. He was also responsible, the architect for the new Canadian High Commission in Kingston, Jamaica. Also, with my father, as those who know him will know, a lot of good stories will come out of this architectural practice. He was anything but dry. He, within the Ottawa region, he was extremely active in his practice after being with Murray and Murray, Griffiths and Rankin. He and his colleague, Alex Rankin, excuse me, started their own firm with their colleague John Cook and formed GRC Architects, which is a practice that has really thrived through the vagaries of architectural weather. Other buildings that I think are extremely interesting that he did and how he did them, the Churchill Alternative School, which he did a lot of personal research with and spoke to the children, ended up being a space really considered of who the people who would be using them, who the tiny people, as well as the teachers, and made it a space that really suited the human, as well as had the aesthetic. He also was involved in the fairly new Great Canadian Theatre Company, the GCTC in Ottawa, which is a very striking and successful new theatre in Ottawa. Also, among other things that I have always found very striking were his design in the Embassy of Kuwait on Sussex Drive in Ottawa is, in my opinion, a beautiful building. The Embassy of the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and many others, including Festival Plaza, which is, again, a very public site. As my father passed away within the last 3 years, have had a chance to, at his memorial, speak to colleagues. And there's no question that he brought people together, and also was very open to young architects, very open to cultivating relationships with architects of other firms, and had a sort of incredible conviviality, openness, and curiosity towards other architectural practices, to cultural practices, which really made him, I think, a special member of the community, as well as a very fine architect. In closing these remarks, I would say, I think this is a really meaningful induction into the honor roll. I know he would be enormously proud. Architecture was his passion as well as his work, and he was very rewarded by architecture, and this would mean a great deal to him to be among his architectural colleagues who he admired very much. I would like to thank you all, and just say I appreciate this opportunity to say a few words about my father, who I have enormous respect and feel very proud of. Thank you.
My name is Judy Coburn. I am Barry's wife, and I am very honored to accept Barry's induction into the OAA Honor Roll. I have witnessed over the last 47 years his tireless contribution to beautiful, intelligent design, and his insistence on environmentally sustainable design, something he was researching and talking about long before it became popular. At the same time as he did this, he juggled his deep commitment to mentoring successive generations of students at the Daniels School of Architecture to aspire to his own high bar of excellence. The magical Niagara Butterfly Conservatory, the handsome student residences at U of T, the dramatic Cloud Gardens, the sunlit Thomas L. Wells Public School, the Post Office Square at St. Louis, and most recently, the very highly regarded MacEwan Graduate Study Building at York University, stand as testimonials to the largeness of his architectural vision. First in partnership with George Baird, and then joined by Jan Noort, projects with the firm's design imprint have received 3 Governor General's Awards and over 40 other architectural urban design awards. Last year, the Butterfly Conservatory received the Prix du XXe Siècle Award of Excellence, celebrating its significance as a Canadian landmark building of the 20th century. His architectural vision extended to a humble family cottage, hand-built by his father in 1950, which has been retained, but lifted up and wrapped with the glass porch and screen porch, a project of love that saw Barry's mentoring skills apply to family and friends who learned trades they had never dreamed of. His experience went beyond the page and into the practical. He was a dab hand at pouring, polishing concrete, and a master at the art of dry-laid stone walls. I've been touched by the warm accolades from Barry's colleagues and former students, who consistently praise his inspiring teaching style and his high level of integrity and thoughtfulness. His role as reviewer of student work was highly appreciated in Ontario schools of architecture and beyond, as was his engagement over the years with the Architectural Accreditation Program, as was his work alongside the architects of One Spadina. He was not only a brilliant architect and an inspiring teacher, but also a man who took his civic responsibility very seriously. It is a fine honor befitting a remarkable man, and I'm so proud to accept it for him. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul Sapunzi, Managing Partner of the Venton Group Architects plus VG. Our firm was founded by Carlos in 1972. On behalf of the partners and staff of the Venton Group, we thank the OAA, its members, and the awards committee for recognizing the achievements of our founder. Next year, the Venton Group will celebrate 50 years of service to the public and the profession of architecture. 50 years of practice is a rare milestone within our profession, and it reflects the solid foundation Carlos laid down for our firm. My association with Carlos began 30 years ago. We worked very closely for decades. I experienced an originality, wit, and agility to make things happen. He motivated countless politicians, administrators, and public in the province of Ontario to restore and reuse as a first line of action, preserving the originality and texture for our communities for many decades to come. Across Ontario, Carlos advocated passionately for the conservation of our built heritage, but not for sentimental reasons alone. Instead, Carlos pioneered the concept of heritage building adaptive reuse, showing doubters in countless municipalities how their historic civic buildings could be revived to become community centerpieces, connecting their past to a functional, practical, and productive future. The success of his ideas and leadership is apparent in the communities throughout the province today. There are dozens of architectural jewels which would simply not exist without Carlos Venton. For that reason, he inspires me to this day. The OAA Service Award reminds us of our responsibility to that legacy and renews our dedication to accelerating the momentum of original ideas. Thank you.
My name is Carla Venton. I'm Carlos Venton's youngest daughter. My dad would have been humbled and thrilled to be inducted to the Ontario Association of Architects Honor Roll. My brother, sister, and I are very honored and want to thank the OAA for the important work that you do and for organizing this event to recognize the important contribution and value of architecture and those with a passion for it. I'd also like to thank Paul Sapunzi from the Venton Group, who worked so closely alongside my dad for decades and shared many laughs along the way and took the time to nominate my father. The greenest building is the one that is already built. Former president of the American Institute of Architects, Carl Elefante, wrote in 2007. You remember that line because it succinctly says what has always been true. And Carlos Venton lived that truth starting in the early 1970s. He had a lifelong commitment to architecture, but saving landmark buildings was not the obvious path. His first association was with close friend Doshi and their work for Le Corbusier in the stunning new works that were appearing in 1960s India. It was a huge leap forward from his upbringing on Argentina's northern frontier. But instead, love took him and his larger-than-life personality to small-town Ontario. In these seemingly modest villages and towns, his instincts quickly recognized the value of the built heritage that he saw. From the 1906 community theater in the town of Port Dover that adopted him to Queen's Park, he coordinated the talents of the Venton Group to prepare the design fabric that connects the original public buildings of Southern Ontario to each other. He convinced decision makers and was willing to risk his career to revive the centerpieces of their towns by updating the way they worked for the public that used them. Restoration wasn't for its own sake. Sympathetic new additions generated the return on investment that saved the structures the residents loved. Carlos Venton's career linked Ontario's first era of modernism to its future sustainability. Tour any one of the Venton Group's creations, and you will see structures that do the same. And they will continue to do so for decades to come. Thank you for the color that you yourselves are adding to the fabric of history that my father loved. As an architect and as an OAA member, he was proud to be one of you. And I am proud to be his daughter. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer King. I'm a licensed technologist OAA in Thunder Bay and the current Vice President of Communications. I'm here to introduce Gary Neal, the Executive Director of the Ontario Association for Applied Architectural Sciences, the OAA's technology program. Gary will share the winners of this year's OAAS Student Awards. Over to you, Gary.
Welcome everyone to our 9th Annual Student Awards. I'm Gary Neal, Executive Director and Registrar of OAAS, the OAA Technology Program. Through our program, qualified architectural technologists can become members of the OAA as licensed technologists OAA. Each year, we're delighted to present these awards, which celebrate excellence among students in Ontario College architectural technology programs. The competition is open to all students enrolled in an architectural technology program and is based on an existing class project. Students in all semesters may enter the competition, but the large projects are done by students in their final year. While the judging criteria cover all facets of the project, including design principles, sustainability, code research, and overall impression, they focus on excellence in technology. Entrants must submit documentation prepared to the building permit submission stage. Our first award category is for a small building. This is defined as one that is within the scope of practice of the licensed technologist OAA. Sometimes we think we should hold an annual competition to see if anyone can define this scope, but worry that no one would ever win. Suffice to say, it is not all buildings covered by Part 9 of the OBC, and it does trickle into Part 3. First place in the small building category goes to The Hamlet, a residential property by Humber College students Robin Scott and Maria Rupiel. Hamlet is a prototype for the redevelopment of a standard laneway lot, designed to meet the housing crunch so common in our urban communities. There are 7 units in total. Hamlet implements numerous passive house design standards and sustainable design strategies. It minimizes operating costs and has net zero carbon emissions. Hamlet strives to harmonize function, flexibility, sustainability, and aesthetics to create a new precedent for an affordable laneway house that promotes an intergenerational community. The jury felt that it was very clearly articulated concept. The technical elements are very well executed and the construction documents are clear, neatly annotated, and appropriately dimensioned. Congratulations to Robin and Maria. Our second award category is the Large Building Award for individual projects. The Large Building Individual First Prize Award goes to James Twitty from Centennial College for the Old 10 Bankside. The Old 10 Bankside is a mixed-use brownfield redevelopment project in Toronto. The site is on the original shoreline of Lake Ontario. The historic East End site between Front Street and the Esplanade was the location of the earliest settlers in the town of York. Located adjacent to York's Old Town 10, which is a 10-block area and the first neighborhood in town to be named, the Front and Princess Streets area has been an industrial zone for the last century. The design concept is part historical reflection and part future projection of living in Toronto in the coming decades. Vertical oblique columns supporting the mass timber building pay homage to the timber pile construction wharves and piers that historically were common around the site. Jury member Dennis Seguin said this: "While condos are not original, extremely tall timber frame condos are. The Bankside has an ambitious goal and carefully considers how to make a greener and more thoughtful injection of density on a historically significant and prominent site. I very much like this nod to history." Facing Front Street, the stone-clad facade podium is formed from bays and columns sympathetic to the local surrounding and fully respecting the area's heritage and cultural fabric. The mass timber construction building to the south houses a community center, daycare, walk-in clinic, and event hall. The project has the latest timber building technology as a sustainable and environmentally friendly building. It also responds to Toronto planning guidelines, which encourage development in this area to be high-rise, mixed use, with market rates and subsidized housing, as well as retail stores, offices, and leisure facilities. Congratulations to James. The large building individual second prize award goes to Tijo Andrew Elvio Febrian of Humber College for Alton Public Gallery and Community Center. In addition to the Alton Mill Arts Center, the Alton Public Gallery and Community Center has a light-emitting and triangular pattern building skin that connects this new modern community center to the Heritage Mill. This mass timber building complex includes a public gallery, fitness center, library, and event venue. Jury member Dana Seguin said this: "The Alton Public Gallery and Community Center project has stunning presentation boards, excellent development of icons and graphics, and is a building I would very much want to visit one day." Congratulations, Andrew. Our third and final award category is the Large Building Award for group projects. I should add that this category is easier to define than the small building category. It is any building that a licensed technologist OAA can work on as part of a larger architectural team, which is how most licensed technologist members actually do work. In the province's architectural practices, our members can and do every aspect of any project that the office is involved in, regardless of its size, scope, or occupancy. This year's first place award goes to Bird Yurt, a unique project that captured the imagination of every jury member. Mohawk College team members are Sierra Wepler, Chris Luca, Sam Winger, and Jiao Bin Singh. Bird Yurt honors the history of the Hamilton Aviary and offers the community continuing opportunity to reconnect with nature. Since 1927, the aviary has provided sanctuary to exotic birds in Hamilton's Westdale community. In 1996, it relocated to a field house in the Royal Botanical Garden, former Teaching Gardens. This was to be a temporary facility, and after almost a quarter century, the building is now in disrepair. The team focused on low-impact design and construction practices, sustainable materials, and organic and free-flowing design. Their goal was to show that a modern multi-purpose facility can both enhance the site and nestle into it. The natural beauty of the woven bird nest and nestled egg was the greatest influence on the design. The team's strategy in replicating it was to design a large round gallery area framed by exposed glue laminated timber beams and the timber floor panels, with glass panes spanning from floor to ceiling. The main free-flying aviary for the exotic birds represents the egg, enclosed in the center of the nest. The free-fly zone's massive sections of glazing connect the building to nature. Congratulations, Sierra, Chris, Sam, and Singh. The second place award in the large building group category goes to Niagara Wellness Center, designed by Masa Taibi and Bahare Gholam Husseini from Humber College. The Niagara Wellness Center is an adaptive renovation and addition to a heritage site, designed to offer clinical and mental health services. The design concept combines a new building with the old historic one, retaining the heritage features. The project adds an additional story on top of the existing 4 levels. This not only preserves the beauty of the historic structure, but makes it more aesthetically pleasing. To exaggerate the concept, the idea of using solid versus transparent materials was adapted by making the new south entrance glass while maintaining the old brick facade. This project scored well on all fronts. The jury liked the isometric views included in the construction documents and the overall feel of the project. Congratulations, Masa and Bahare. This past year has been difficult for everyone, and all the colleges have been operating almost exclusively online. Some of them were unable to enter our competition this year. In these challenging circumstances, we need to send a very special thank you to the college faculty who encouraged and supported their students to compete in the 2021 Student Awards. Your role is essential to the ongoing success of the competition. This year, we thank Dawn Asimovic from Sheridan College, Rebecca Beatty from Mohawk College, Anais Daragopian, Michael Guido, Julian Lum-Smith, and Yuri Surov from Humber College, John Romanoff from Centennial College, and Stan Zalewski from Durham College. And finally, a very special thank you as well to the 2021 adjudication team for sharing your expertise and valuable time with us. Without you, there would be no winners. Our jury this year was David Mills, architect. Incidentally, these awards were David's idea 10 years ago, and we are delighted he agreed to rejoin us this year. Dana Sagan, licensed technologist OAA, and Matthew Stretton, a technologist OAAAS, who is soon to become an OAA licensed member. We invite you to visit our virtual booth. You can find information about the OAA technology program and can look through the documentation from this year's winning projects. You can also see the wonderful work done by our 2020 award winners. Due to the public health measures last year, we were unable to celebrate them with you. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the conference and stay safe.
Thank you for joining us today to recognize these students, as well as the Honor Roll inductees and G. Randy Roberts Service Award winner. For those of you who are registered for the entire OAA Virtual Conference Week, we have a lot more to come over the next few days, including exciting educational sessions. For those of you who haven't registered, there are still many free events that you can watch via the OAA website or YouTube, such as a special public plenary happening tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., The Value of Zero, Investing in Carbon-Free Design. We would love for you to join us to learn how smart, sustainable design makes good financial sense. And on Thursday at 4:30, we will present the 5 inspiring selections for the OAA Shift 2021 Resiliency in Architecture Challenge, showcasing how the profession can offer new and innovative approaches to societal issues. We're excited to share them with you. Thanks everyone, and have a great evening.